Over the last few months, I've been dialing in my Tacoma, and not always in ways I expected. From cycling through tire setups, to replacing a bumper that got rear-ended, to finally tracking down that weird popping noise in the front end, this truck has been through a lot. And now, for the first time since fixing it all, I'm putting it to a real test. And while it's still desert season, it's time to explore! I planned a more than 100-mile off-road route across Southern California, from Joshua Tree through an iconic national park, Johnson Valley where the infamous King of the Hammers race takes place, all the way up to the Big Bear Mountains. There's washes, rock shelves, sand dunes, and even snow. And since our last rugged adventures, I made some updates to my Toyota Tacoma that I cannot wait to show you all. And over the next 3 days, we're taking the backcountry way through some amazing off-road terrain here in SoCal. All while we find out if I can keep my truck intact this time and stay out of trouble. If you've been thinking about taking your truck on a rugged adventure, this is what it actually looks like. Woo! I'm gonna go one more time. P.S. I saved this whole rugged adventures for you guys. The link below has my complete onX off-road route folder with my exact track, last fuel stops, key waypoints, and every cool spot you'll see in this video. It also includes trail difficulty and some insider tips if you're thinking about running it yourself. Now, some of you might remember, we actually did a rugged adventures with onX Off-Road last year in this same Tacoma, and it exposed a lot of issues with my truck, most of which, if I'm being honest, I inadvertently caused while building it. Previously, I was running a wheel and tire setup that, in hindsight, just wasn't ideal for how I actually used this truck. The lower offset looked aggressive, but it was just throwing rocks, chewing up my bedsides, and putting unnecessary stress on the suspension geometry. So now I'm on a higher offset wheel and upgraded to the new BFG KO3 all-terrain tires, which have been riding incredibly so far. But the bigger issue was suspension stress. On that last trip, and several after it, I had front end vibrations, an alignment that wouldn't hold, and this weird popping noise I couldn't ignore. It turns out the fix wasn't dramatic, but it was critical. Shops were torquing my lower control arm cam bolts to 106 foot-pounds, which was the old Tacoma spec. The updated and correct spec for my truck is significantly higher at 206 foot-pounds. After correcting that, we've driven a few hundred miles off-road and the cams are still holding alignment. I also kept my rigid fog ambers because they've been clutch for reading trail contours at night, especially when I'm trying not to smash my bumper on a rock I didn't see. And I added a lot more protection, a mix of factory and aftermarket armor. And most recently, I installed Toyota's bed MOLLE panel so that I can store gear more intentionally. That's where my Milwaukee Packout lives now, which holds my Starlink Mini. I actually used it several times on this trip when I had zero service, mostly to call my mom and let her know I was still alive. Of course, recovery gear and a full-size spare too are also non-negotiable on a route like this. Also, right now I'm dealing with a ruptured eardrum, so I've been carrying so many medicines, antibiotics. Ruptured eardrum, do not recommend, guys. I may not be 100% recovered as a driver yet, but hopefully after a year of fixing and refining, my Tacoma is. So let's put it to the test. Most people enter Joshua Tree through one of the main gated park entrances, but I'm taking the backcountry way in, starting off the I-10. The conditions so far look okay considering that SoCal got so much rain. I mean, it was absolutely insane for us this week. But we are making a lot of dust, so the trail isn't that wet. Although I'm curious how the conditions will be once we get inside the canyon, because it is obviously a lot more shaded. So hopefully it's not too bad. What I do know is that I'm freezing. My heated steering wheel and seat heaters are on full blast. So the way I like to enter Joshua Tree National Park is through the 4x4 backcountry roads, starting on the south side of the park through one of the canyons. Today we're going into Pinkham Canyon, which I have taken all my trucks through except for this one, my 2024 Tacoma. It's pretty friendly to all sorts of builds, although it was tight coming into the trailhead. Fair warning, this trail is known for pinstripes. Even a mid-sized truck like the Tacoma won't escape without them completely. Just wait till you see some before and afters on mine, but it's a fun one. I have so many good memories of doing these trails when Cody was a puppy, and once you finish them, you're in the park. Good thing we checked the National Park website, because the trail I originally wanted to do led to a road that is closed, so this is another way into the park. There are alternative trails you could take into the park with the stock Tacoma, but Pinkham Canyon is one of my favorites. It's about 21 miles of off-roading with a mix of ruts, washes, and scattered rock sections. It's not extreme, but it's just technical enough that airing down at the trailhead is a good idea. Going down to 16, just because it's a pretty rocky trail, and we want to have a comfortable ride too, but we're not going that fast. You can go much lower on these B-grip wheels. I have friends who air down to the single digits, but that's definitely overkill for what we'll see today. And pro tip, I always put the valve stem caps on top of the tires so I don't lose them, because I always lose them in the dirt and stuff like that. So with 4 high engaged and the sway bar disconnected, it's officially time to start this rugged adventure. Despite it being a little bit dusty, I am keeping the windows open for the most part because it's really nice to have some fresh air. And also the sounds of like tires going on rocks and dirt. It's like ASMR for me. Every time I've run this trail, it's been pretty empty. There are stretches where, depending on your setup, you can pick up the pace a little bit, but always take the washes slow. Those are where bumpers get sacrificed. And same with when the trail tightens up. That's when you minimize the pinstripes. Now some of the rockier sections require a bit more intention. My rear diff actually hit this exact rock on my other Tacoma, but this truck had just enough clearance to skate by, even with that added rear diff skid plate. The rockiest section you'll find though is here, which starts with a sharp turn. Close to this rock, but I do have a lot of space up front. As you can see, I tried taking it wide, and I still had to do a 3-point turn to avoid contact. And the section immediately after comes down to line choice. So this rocky section isn't too bad, even in a stock truck. It really is all just about line placement. It really is less dramatic than it looks. You can kind of see here where people have stacked rocks, but all I did was put my right tire on this rock and went straight. And your left tire ends up right over here. The only thing you have to avoid is this rock, but there's more than enough clearance. something in the suspension creak a lot. And a lot of times when I go off-road, I start hearing these noises versus when I'm just daily driving to work and stuff. I'm not too concerned since a lot of the time these noises just get exacerbated, so to speak, because of the dirt, like dust and stuff gets between seals. The other noise I hear a lot of are my sensors going crazy on this trail, especially around the tight areas. But that's just part of running a modern truck with a lot of tech, especially in tight brush sections. But I can't complain. The front and side cameras were incredibly helpful on this entire trip, especially when squeezing past rocks with barely any margin. We made it and we survived, and the truck is doing okay. Once you hit the end of the washboard, this trail leads you to a main road in Joshua Tree National Park, specifically the Cottonwood Visitor Center, which is very busy because it is winter time and a Saturday. We did see 2 other vehicles while we were on the trail, but otherwise it was not very busy. One 4Runner and also a giant F-250. So if you think this is a lot of pinstripes, I imagine he will be getting a similar amount too. Fuel-wise, we only drove about 22 miles on the trail, but obviously we were moving pretty slowly, so have mostly a full tank. Although you want to make sure that you're full if you're following our route, because now that we're in the national park and going to be driving quite a bit, there are no gas stations in the national park, so you'll want to be stocked up. Plus, just good precaution to always have a full tank when you're going off-roading. Time to air back up. I'm only gonna go up to like 30 because we're gonna have to air back down again later today. But we're driving quite a bit on paved roads, so not ideal to be at 16 or 17 or 18 or whatever my truck is right now. And overall, the truck did really good, as it should. I mean, the trail was not too difficult at all. There was just that one rocky section where you had to pick the right line, but it was pretty easy. I feel like my alignment didn't get knocked out of place, which is great, and as it shouldn't. I did bring a couple extra crescent wrenches in case we needed to adjust tie rods again, but you know what? I'm glad I don't have to use my own tools, even though I genuinely love using my own tools, just on other people's vehicles, not mine ideally. To be fair, I am using one of my new tools now. I built myself this ARB air compressor in a box, and it's been one of the most useful tools I've added to this truck. So you just hit the switch, the compressor turns on. Honestly, ARB sells a version of this box too, but I like that this one is DIY, homemade. After checking onX, refueling with a little more coffee, and of course, after grabbing a quick bite, we've got 50 miles of paved driving through Joshua Tree ahead of us with a few stops along the way. Honestly, after driving that trail, now driving on road through this park is such a treat. I mean, it's so beautiful. It feels so relaxing, so low-key. It's a little cold for my liking at 59 degrees, but better than being super blazing hot like it gets here in the summer. But really, this is what having one of these trucks or an off-road vehicle is all about, at least to me. I mean, 99.99% of people that are visiting this park, probably even a higher percentage, don't come in through the backcountry roads. But the fact that you can is so cool. And this is the part I actually love, with my music on and just cruising through the park to take the beauty in. Before heading out of the park, I mapped a few useful waypoints like bathrooms and reservable campsites and a couple of spots I thought were worth pulling over for, like these cool rocks. Like a dog's head almost, or like a rat's head with like the nose pointed up. And this quick hike brings you up this arch rock, which is tucked between some other massive rock formations. All right, on to our next waypoint. And just a few miles down the road is another rocky landmark you can't miss. This one is appropriately named Skull Rock.
What do you think of the skull?
It surprisingly looks very much like a skull. 2 eyes, nose, and a big old forehead, like my dog. As you may or may not have been able to tell, Skull Rock and Arch Rock for that matter, we're both very, very busy. I mean, it is a Saturday for good reason. I love myself a good rock formation. I can't wait to show you guys our next spot we're going to visit. This won't be the last time we see Joshua trees, but we are officially exiting the park. As I roll towards the west entrance, quick reminder, if you came in through the backcountry like we did, make sure you stop and pay your park fee on the way out. Now before I make my way back onto the sand, I had to make a quick detour to the nearby town of Pioneer Town. I've always wanted to visit this place because there's this part of me that wants to feel like I'm in a classic Clint Eastwood film or something. Pioneer Town just feels like stepping into a whole different version of the desert, and it's so close to Joshua Tree, I had to include it on this trip. See how I'm doing on fuel? Just under 3/4 of a tank of gas, and where we're headed, there may not be fuel in Johnson Valley, so before we leave town, probably a good idea that we get fuel. This Circle K isn't technically the last fuel stop before Johnson Valley, home of the infamous King of the Hammers off-road race, but it's close enough to the next trailhead that I feel comfortable topping off here. I know when a lot of people think about KOH, they think of these crazy builds and solid axles, but we're going to see that Johnson Valley isn't just extreme rock crawling. I'm going to show you how to explore this area in a different way, one that's totally doable in my mostly stock Tacoma. I didn't air down, I'm still at 30 psi. We'll see how bad it gets first, but it's really just washboard. So instead of heading straight into Hammertown, we're taking the longer way in through Giant Rock Trail, which leads to a pretty significant landmark a couple miles down. So we have made it to Giant Rock. This is a very, very giant rock. I wonder if it do you think it fell off the mountain? Giant Rock is a 7-story. 7? Okay, I could believe 7-story. 30,000-ton boulder in California's Mojave Desert covering 5,800 square feet. That's literally more than 5 times bigger than my house, and considered the world's largest freestanding boulder. And just like its size, this rock also has a giant history. Okay, Wikipedia now. In the 1930s, Frank Kritzer moved to Giant Rock. Inspired by desert tortoises that dig holes in which to cool themselves, Kritzer dug out a home on the north side of the rock using dynamite. I wonder if that's why it split into 2. The underground home was reportedly never hotter than 80 degrees Fahrenheit and never cooler than 55 degrees Fahrenheit. Kritzer built an airstrip on the nearby. This guy is so interesting. Where is this concrete foundation his house? I bet. Oh my gosh. Oh no. That's gotta be where It was, right? They just filled it in? Wait, I want to go on the tire swing. So apparently this guy also self-detonated in his house while running from the FBI. You might have to fact check me on that one, but anyways, there is this tire swing, and I do think it's 100% worthy of swinging by. The rest of the trail leads into Hammertown, the lake bed where a temporary city pops up during King of the Hammers. Now it's a relatively easy drive for a few miles, and originally we had planned to camp out here for the night. However, we later learned that parts of this area were temporarily closed for scheduled military training during this time. So we were actually stopped, informed of the closure, and I apologize for the oversight as the MPs escorted us out without any issue. But I wanted to share this simply as a reminder that Johnson Valley is a shared use area and certain sections close during specific training windows throughout the year. There's a public schedule available online that outlines the open and close dates, but just want to say if you're planning a trip out here, do not end up like me. Make sure to check those dates ahead of time so you don't run into the same situation. So I want to be honest with you guys, we kind of had to film things out of order after our run-in with the military place, which we definitely did not want to mess around with. So we waited until this area became part of the shared use Johnson Valley area open to the public for OHVs before coming back to Hammertown and exploring the rest of what was King of the Hammers. We're actually coming here just a few weeks after the race, and it is really wild to think that this lake bed turns into a city in the desert. Like, there's easily around 100,000 people that attend this every year, but normally it's just this vast open area. onX actually maps out the race pretty well, so you can get an idea of how populated the race is just looking at the map. There's normally a ton of vendors, you can get service done, quite literally, a city. So this is the fire pit. Normally the TV screen is over here to the left during King of the Hammers. And at night, lots of people gather around this area. But we didn't just come for this. A quick drive in the sand will bring you right to Chocolate Thunder, a short but extremely technical and rocky trail. Usually there's like a plastic fence here to keep spectators out, but this is Chocolate Thunder. So many rocks to take a pee on. And those rocks are covered with people during King of the Hammers that like to watch the carnage. This footage doesn't capture how gnarly these rocks are compared to in person, as it's easy to high center and not uncommon to tip. King of the Hammers was crazy this year. I didn't go personally, but watching all the videos of people like literally right here, just like fighting and stuff was insane. The sand here starts to get really soft, but I think I could get my Tacoma all the way up here. We're not gonna try it today, but all the way, oh yeah, to the base of these rocks. Cody, engage 4 low, rock crawl, pull me up the hill. Go, 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 go. Choose the right line, pick the right line. It's insane thinking of driving anything up these rocks. Man, it is pretty gnarly seeing that trail during the day and empty. I think there's a world where a Tacoma could do that, maybe if it was solid axle swapped and on 40s. Besides that, this race requires safety regulations like roll cages, so stock Tacomas don't do it. But I will say this route is a cool way to experience KOH in my daily driver, and we are going to stay on what's suitable for a Tacoma like mine while still hitting some of the infamous obstacles here. Like our next one, Backdoor. So we're actually driving, albeit very slowly, on part of the trophy truck course. So this is the start of Backdoor, and I want to see how big the hole is before the show. This is extremely dug out. Look, you can see how many tire treads have gone over this. It's been a couple hits. This would be insane to crawl up. So spectators normally stand on both sides up here and cheer whoever's trying to get up. This is insane though. I mean, I'm 5'5". That's quite the initial climb. This is actually way more dug out compared to past years, making the ledge climb even harder, but it's kind of down to the bedrock at this point, so it's probably not going to get much deeper. I'll tell you, after seeing that, the rock shelves we climb make me feel like a baby. Now the cool thing about Johnson Valley is that in addition to extreme rock crawling, rutted trails, and whoops, you can actually find sand dunes, which many of you know is my favorite kind of terrain to drive my truck on. You take Sand Dune Expedition Trail to get to them, and there's a few rocks to avoid along the way, but this is something my Tacoma can manage. If you're aired down, you keep your momentum and turn off traction control. It's a fun time. Woo! I'm gonna go one more time. The end of the trail will put you back on the 247 for a quick 2-mile drive to our next trail. You know, this was my first time experiencing Johnson Valley outside King of the Hammers time, and as an off-road enthusiast, it is pretty awesome to visit when it's far less crowded and while it's not blazing hot yet. On this third day of our route, we're going from the desert to the mountains, some of which you can see still have some snow. We're at the trailhead of Rattlesnake Canyon. Right before you get in is a good spot to air down, which is what we're doing right now. And we're gonna take this plus a couple other trails straight all the way from Johnson Valley to Big Bear. Mechanical tools are so nice. Never have to change the batteries in this. Or more likely, a grain of sand gets in here. The terrain here is pretty diverse, so I go down to 16 psi for obstacles that we'll encounter in the canyon. Now let me just tell you guys, yes, the Tacoma is a mid-sized truck, but mid-sized trucks these days are like the same size as full-size trucks were 20 years ago. Part of it is consumer demand here, but also regulatory loopholes that just favor larger vehicles. Now I, for one, am not complaining about this because I actually appreciate the safety aspects as every other vehicle is getting larger too, so why am I talking about this? Well, I just think if you have a full-size truck on this specific trail, you could get through it, but there are some areas where there were very tight squeezes. Not really with pinstripes like we saw with Pinkham Canyon, but between two rocks. So I personally recommend to not drive Rattlesnake Canyon in anything much wider than a Tacoma. This is the rocky section through the canyon. It's also just getting harder to see out of these vehicles with the blind spots and the body shape, so when you encounter these rocky obstacles, having a spotter is extremely helpful. Also, while I don't 100% rely on them, the front and side cameras in my Tacoma are immensely helpful.
Driver.
Once you make it out of the canyon, a forest of Joshua trees will greet you on the other side. Now I know we went to the national park already, but there is something special about being the only ones on a trail, seeing desert on one side and snow on the mountains on the other. That makes this a really unique experience. We're at a Rattlesnake Canyon and headed into Big Bear. Check it out. First bit's a little snow on the ground. Not much, but maybe we'll see more as we continue on. Driving up Burns Canyon to Big Bear, you'll definitely encounter ruts. A good use case to engage my factory sway bar disconnect again. You can see this is extreme if you put your tires in the holes, but if you keep a line like this, which is exactly what I did, it is no problem. It literally felt like nothing with my sway bar disconnected. I still kept hearing some sort of creak from my front suspension, but on the trip, I was constantly checking my cam tabs, and I think that noise is just coming from the dust. Although, depending on the time of year you go, the trail could change from dust to mud pretty quickly. Some of the snow has melted off the mountains and is making the trail a little bit muddy. But so far, so good for us. We'll see how bad it gets. After the slushy snow, the Tacoma was completely caked in mud. At least it hid the pinstripes. But with the end of the trail here, we finally made it to Big Bear, and up here, it really is a pick-your-own adventure. There are so many trails in every direction and every sort of difficulty, so I wanted to make it up Holcomb Valley. Now, under normal conditions, it's absolutely doable in this Tacoma, but as we pulled up, the trailhead was packed. Oh, you do?
Yeah.
No way.
Method 709s, right?
That's right.
Actually,
HD.
I have 709s. I'm going to be installing my truck very soon.
Oh, nice. Very cool. I was going to say, you have a badass truck.
Oh, thanks. When I was up there, there's about 20 trucks trying to push through. But the problem is, it's really bad.
Oh.
3 of the front Jeeps turned around and they
really?
came back.
Wow.
And they had 40s on them.
40s and
yeah.
they turned around?
And they turned around.
It must
40s.
Be really rutted out.
Yeah.
It's probably rutted out from all the snow.
I had to help 2 guys pull out because they got stuck.
All right, well, appreciate the heads up. Thanks for letting me check out your truck and everything. Well, you heard it here first, ladies and gents. Trail conditions. I mean, you could see people coming down. So while we knew we were going to have to also turn around, I decided to just ease up it far enough to see what it was like for ourselves. The snow wasn't powder anymore. It was heavy, slushy, and rutted. My Tacoma was slipping and sliding a bit, and it was getting deep to the point where my rear diff was dragging on the snow. Alright. I feel like it's not gonna get better as we go up. And I don't feel like slipping and sliding off the mountain today. I feel like Lady Luck has been on our side pretty much for all of this trip, but I would hate for it to end in a worse fashion. So we're gonna heed the words of the Ranger Raptor friendly guy, my Method 709 buddy, who we saw at the trailhead, and we're gonna turn around before things get worse. But it was really pretty, the little drive I had up here. And I already see we've got other people behind us. Maybe they came through all the way. Maybe they turned around. Who knows? There's probably so much snow up there. I mean, if there's snow down here, I think there's a lot of snow up there that we didn't see. Under normal conditions, Holcomb is absolutely doable in this Tacoma, and it's still part of my rugged adventure route. But with the snow turning heavy and slushy, the risk to reward just doesn't make sense for us today. But you know what? Over 3 days, my Tacoma handled desert whoops, rock crawling, sand dunes, and snow without a single mechanical issue. I definitely couldn't say that after our last rugged adventures, so honestly, that is my real win. And sometimes the best way to finish a trail is by knowing when you've gone far enough. Besides, I still need to drive this truck to work tomorrow. Thank you so much for coming along on this one. And if you want to explore this route yourself, the full onX Off-Road Rugged Adventures folder is linked down below. I appreciate you all watching. Stay safe out there, and until next time.